What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Vera House podcast. Today, we're talking about community, culture, and what health really means, not just physical, but mental and financial too. I'm sitting down with Abdul Winfield, Sharita Edwards, and Ali Bey, founders of the Universal Health Chair, a movement bringing conversations about health and wellness into one of the most trusted places in our neighborhoods, the barbershop and salon chair. Abdul, known as AB, has been building culture in Richmond for over 20 years as the owner of Salon 201, using the barbershop as a space for connection and growth. Sharita, also known as Ree, is a financial strategist, helping people find confidence and balance through financial wellness, reminding us that money is a part of healthcare. And Ali is a health educator and program administrator who's connecting local leaders and creating opportunities for community healing. Together, they're building something special, a space where people can talk openly about mental health, financial empowerment, and overall well-being. Let's get into it. Thank you all for being here. Let's get right into it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us on Vera.
Of course. So I want to start by just saying, AB, thanks for agreeing to be here. We've talked about this a fair amount over the past few weeks and months, but we've talked about a lot of other stuff over, I guess it's been like a year or so where I've been seeing you to keep my fade fresh, keep my hair tight.
Right, absolutely.
Over at the shop. So I'm curious off the jump here, what experiences and, what's environment in the shop itself that motivated you to go towards starting and working to start your Universal Health Care Network?
Well, the barbershop is a unique environment, right? It's unique because not only do individuals or men come and get their hair cut, but it's always been a safe space for men to come and have conversations, right? So it's always been a place where we talk about sports, we talk about politics, religion, relationships, right? And one thing I always felt like we're guilty of is not having a conversation about health, right? Because it's kind of stigmatized. Nobody really wants to get personal about their physical health or their mental health or their financial health, right? And so those are the things I feel like are important in our community that we're kind of lacking in because, we kind of behind the eight ball on all of those things. Like it's like a car not hitting on all its cylinders, you know what I'm saying? So those are the things I feel like kind of inspired me to start the UHC. And in addition to that, I come across a lot of young kids, young men that I see going in different directions, some negative, some positive. But we also have an opportunity to kind of shape these kids and kind of guide them in a good direction because they trust us, right? You have to trust the person who got a blade to your forehead, right? And so they kind of trust us. And I actually joined a group called Virginia Voices for Children. And we went to the General Assembly to lobby for resources from Congress to get resources for mental health. And I reached out to them because I told them, I said, we could be a liaison to you guys because we can catch a young person who's dealing with mental health issues maybe before you can. And so that we can kind of stop it right there and refer them to somebody who can get them some type of help. So that was kind of the inspiration for the UAC because I saw a need in the community for these things that plague us on an everyday basis.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. And I can resonate with a little bit of that and relate to it as well. I was thinking about this beforehand, how easy it was to have those conversations in a place like the barbershop. Right. And how easy it is to connect with somebody like your barber. There's an intimate relationship there that you don't really get with your friends. Sometimes you don't get it with your family, right? But you get it in this kind of unique space, the chair at the salon or the barbershop. And you're right about being the liaison between some young folks or people that may be going through health crisis or health issues or just curious about health and resources, but maybe don't have access to it. But you do. Right. And you can get that information quicker than a healthcare professional because that person may not be able to go to see a healthcare professional. They may not want to go because they don't trust the healthcare system. Right. So you can get ahead of it in a lot of the cases. And there's an immeasurable benefit to being somebody like that in the community because a lot of the barriers as we know, is the bureaucracy and the paperwork and the red tape that kind of limits people's access to healthcare and to resources. You can walk into any barbershop in the neighborhood and get a haircut and have a conversation, right? You don't need health insurance to do that. Right. So it's a cool thing that you're using that's already embedded and a part of the community to expand like the reach and the positive impact that it'll have on it. I love that. I think that's incredible.
Right. Well said.
Yeah, man. So you built this alongside Ali. Each of you brings something different to the table. How did this partnership come together? You know, how did you guys connect over this?
Well, I knew this brother for some time, for years. You know, I knew his children, many people in his family, you know, I was close to. And so he came into the shop one day with his son to get a cut. And we just started building. We started talking and discussing different things. Nothing having to do with the UHC whatsoever at this point in time, right? But it's one thing about having this, we call it Montech mind, right? Where, you know, you understand the individual based on their intellectual level. You understand the individual based off of their heart and where their mind is, where their heart is, where their spirit is, I should say, you know? And so that's one thing I can relate to this brother on, when we connected on that level. That's how we initially met. And then we had conversations about working on different projects for the community, because he's deeply embedded in the community. And we was just, you know, throwing things against the wall to see what sticks. And eventually we came up with this healthcare thing, but not just physical, mental, and financial as well. So yeah, that's how I think we initially connected.
Yeah.
He might tell you a different story, but, you know.
I love that. Is there a different story to how this came to be, how you guys connected on this?
Well, I think this has been something that's been in his higher mind, and through our relationship developing our relationship, it came where we got to a space where he could share it with me without any restraint or without any holdback. Because as he mentioned, I'm the director and president. I own a 501c3 nonprofit organization that turned 10 years old. And we've been doing family, community outreach, education for 10 years. I'm also a board member of another community organization. And so, you know, I think what he said is accurate. I also think that he put the flag up for something that we could come together on. And I also think, however you would like to say it, the universe, mathematics, however you want to say, I think the stars aligned, right? Mm-hmm. The stars aligned. And we had some things that went on. Life goes on, but we kept to it, and we were able to, you know, make it manifest.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Just when things align, and especially when things align with someone that you're already close with, and maybe you've been close with for a long time, and it probably never crossed your mind in the past that this is the person that I'm going to work with, because you already had a relationship, and your relationship is what it is. But until you grew up, or not grew up, but, you know, maybe even grew up, but grew and learned and developed on your own and decided that this was an important thing that you wanted to pursue. And that happened to coincide with Ali's same mindset and his path, and what brought him to being at the same place at the same time. Like, I like to call that like serendipity, same place, same time.
Right.
You know, it's not a coincidence
at all.
You were all both on that path,
right? And
you just united at the right place at the right time when you were supposed to. And now it doesn't seem like a stretch for you to work together. Does it seem like a chore or a challenge for you to approach this with, you know, the same attitude and the same, you know, with the same wants and needs, and trying to see it through? I think that's fantastic. You know, it's tough to find a good partner.
Absolutely.
You know,
I mean, I used to see this brother everywhere, like from social media to in the streets. I mean, and when I say everywhere, I'm talking about places of substance and importance, right? Mm-hmm. He's in the community helping this person. Everywhere I turn, I see the name, and I see himself, and I'm like, yo, he's doing everything right as far as the community, and so it made sense. It just made sense. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I probably was missing out on as well. Like I had an idea, I had a vision, but I didn't have the community. You know, I had my community, but not the community as a whole. Whereas this brother probably had his hands into a far reach into a large, broader community. So it worked, man. It worked.
Yeah, it probably didn't click right away. You know,
right?
You probably had this thought that's growing and this passion that's growing, and he's already in your group, in your circle, but maybe just didn't click that this is the guy that I need to be working with. Until some things transpire, you guys meet minds on something, and then it clicks, and you're like, okay, well, this is the guy. Because maybe you've been looking for it in some other places, talking to some other folks, trying to test the waters and see, you know, who can I collaborate with, who's going to be a good partner with this. But then your partner was with you already, and it's just a matter of time, before that developed into, you know, the same minded approach to everything. I think that's fantastic.
They always say you're looking for, like, you lost your keys, you lost your wallet. You know what I'm saying? You lost something very tangible that you needed. But the whole time, where is it? It's right in front of you.
Yeah.
The whole time it's right in front of you.
It's right there.
It's right there.
It's right there. And, you know, somebody could have told you back in the day and said, hey, why don't you talk to Ali? Or Ali said, why don't you talk to AB? Right. And you're like, oh, yeah, AB's cool, but maybe some other time. And then further down the line, you're like, all right, maybe he is the guy. Because you see a different side of that person, you know, and then your relationship changes from what it was to what it is now, which I'm a big fan of that. You know, being really good friends with somebody or a group of people that are your friends for certain reasons. You all have certain things in common. You like to do certain things. You have the same mindset or opinions about stuff. And then when you start to take a step in a different direction, you look over and most of those people aren't there with you.
Right.
But then out of nowhere comes one of your homies. You're like, oh, so you like this too. You're into this too. Oh, this is all right. This is good. It feels good. It feels better that way. Yeah. It doesn't feel like it's forced, which I think is important. So Ali, you wear a lot of hats: program administrator, health educator, community builder, and strategist. How did your path in health education and public outreach lead you into this work?
So, as a original man or a Black man here in America, I've dealt with a lot of adversities that I've had to overcome. Dealing with those adversities, I would say education saved my life, or that I chose it and it chose me. The degree says that many may come, few are chosen. Those that are chosen choose themselves. So I think education chose me, and I chose it. Through education, I've been able to take that skill set into my community work and to what I call organizational discipline. And so that brought me to being able to go from just being like a liaison or a strategist in a organization or a nonprofit or a community organization to being the director. It took me from being a member of an organization to be an officer of an organization. And also, I still work in the school system. I still work in a school setting, and I still homeschool my child. So all of these collective skill sets that come with a lot of discipline brought me to that. And also just having a vision, like really having a vision, being able to be disciplined. I don't need to be everywhere, and I don't need to do everything. But like he said, it has to be something substantial and something with substance that attracts to what my goals are. Mm-hmm. So my goals aligned with what Ab has been talking about, Ab is about, and what Sharita has been talking about and what Sharita is about. And so when those things align, then you can go forward without hesitation.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the key part to sustaining it as well, seeing it through for the long haul, is that it aligns with your vision and your goals and the things that you're already involved with or developing on your own. You know, the tricky part about organization building trust, building a community, is that it can be more work than you bargained for. It can be a hard, tough, arduous journey to build a community. There's a lot of friction. There are a lot of hurdles. Maybe it's a lot of stuff you're new to doing, never done before, a lot of conversations you haven't had. And if you don't deep down already align with most of it, you're going to have an internal conflict on your own. And you might seek out the self-preservation side and say, okay, well, I like this, but it's a little harder than I thought. And it's taken me away from where I think I should truly be. And if that isn't where you need to be, then you don't need to be a part of it.
Right.
And if it already aligns with what you were doing, that friction is a lot easier to manage. Because it doesn't mean there isn't going to be any part of you that is maybe feeling pulled in a lot of different directions. You know, you have other things going on in your world. But if it already aligns with the majority of what you're doing, it's a lot easier. And oftentimes you get more fulfillment out of it when you're going through and you get those hurdles that come up. The hard stuff always comes up.
Right.
And that's when you're tested. It's like, okay, do I really want to do this?
Right.
You know?
So P, can I call you P?
Sure.
Yeah. So P, the one very important thing that I just want to mention, last summer at the end of August, I dealt with a brain injury. That brain injury changed my life. However, it also allowed me to regroup some things. And in that whole process of getting through that situation, Ab was there in support and Sharita was there in support. And they already were my friends and my people, but I say it brought them closer to me. I don't know if I needed them to be closer to, I already felt close to them, but it brought some things like that happen. Like, for example, I was in New York when 9/11 happened. You know what I mean? And it brought the city together. Mm-hmm. So when things like that happen, a lot of the times it will show the character and integrity of a group or of a person. And then if you have something in mind, a purpose to continue forward on, then you do that. So as I dealt with, overcoming that and getting through that, they both were there in my support. And that made me feel very, supported. And it also did something good for the relationship that I have individually with them.
Yeah.
And now that we have collectively.
Yeah. That's deep, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's oftentimes in those moments when we go through hardship, we go through the trials, when a couple of things are revealed, the people that are in your corner are the ones that usually show up, and maybe they were already there, but they're there when you need them the most. And I think that's important and oftentimes overlooked. And maybe a lot of people don't get an opportunity to have that experience where they're tested, their relationships are tested, and they get to see what it's all really made of, what they're made of, what their friends and family relationships and ties are made of. It's important. And oftentimes it does come out through tragedy, which is the unfortunate part. But if you make it through and you sustain and you can, power through and power on, and you come away with, one, you get to know the people that were in your corner and in your circle that much more. And you build a bond between them that can span the test of time. If you were tested this one point and y'all are tighter now, you'll be tight oftentimes for a very long time.
Right.
And when it comes to a partnership in an organization and trying to build a community, you're leading by example in that part. You're showing people that this is what a community is supposed to be like.
Right.
It's easy to talk about it. It's easy to write about it and shout it into, the ether. But leading by example is one of the,
you have to live it.
One of the best ways to show people, one, that you're serious about what you're talking about. And two, that if this is something that you're interested in, this is what it will look like when you join in and you get more information and you come over and you hear what we have to say and, experience what we're going through at the same time.
Right.
It's invaluable. And,
right.
As leaders of the organization, having that character, having that trait I think it's a big part of building your group, big part of attracting people to what you're doing. So I think it's incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is great, man. I I've talked to Ab about it. We never really got this deep into it, and I was already curious. Like you mentioned it, and like I said earlier, it just dawned on me that this was immediately a good idea, and making the connection between healthcare professionals and resources and your community, oftentimes for people who don't have the access to, it's a noble pursuit. I think a lot of people that hear what you're doing maybe don't really understand how difficult it may be, but also how much positive impact you can have.
Right.
We were talking about some of the conversations you've had with some healthcare professionals. Can you think of a conversation that you've had with a healthcare professional, someone who is high up in administration in the healthcare system, that makes you think, okay, well, this is a good idea. We're on the right track with this?
Oh man. I mean, I have many great conversations. We're privy to have a gentleman by the name of Dr. Wynn, who is the director of the Macy Cancer Center, is in full support of us. And we've sat down and had conversations with him. But he's imparted so much wisdom, in regards to what he does. Like I'm
sorry, I don't want to be rude. Dr. Wynn is the president of the VCU Macy Cancer Center. The Macy Cancer Center is one of 5 comprehensive cancer centers in the United States of America, in the nation. He's a black man. He's an original man. So he's one of 2 black men that are leaders of the 5 comprehensive cancer centers
in the country.
Wow.
Right. He's a client, a friend, a family of, and he's one of the leaders in clinical cancer research in the country.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I tell him all the time.
I had to say that. Pardon.
I know. I tell him all the time that, not all superheroes wear capes, man. And I tell him all the time, he's a superhero. You know why? Because he doesn't have to do the things that he's doing for the community. Like, his mission to come to Richmond was to bridge the disparity between Black and brown people and people of low income to get them access to healthcare, access to cancer treatments that they may not necessarily have access to. You see what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. So this man can go across the country and be paid at the top of universities and centers and things of that nature. But he chose that mission because it's close to his heart. Mm-hmm. And so that in itself was inspiration for me, for us to be able to push forward. You see what I'm trying to say? And he deals with hurdles himself. And so I'll pick his brain all the time to see, hey man, I'm struggling with this. Like, one day I told him, I said, Doc, I got a question for you. I said, complacency. And he just shook his head like, oh man, like, here it come. Like, all right, give it to me, Ab. You see what I'm trying to say? Yeah. And I said, hey, what do you do when you get complacent? And he told me about the scientific method, and he kind of just tell me a story about the scientific method. And my takeaway was like, you use that method and try to go through any type of adversity you have, any type of struggle that you have. You complacent, stick to it. You got a constant, you got a means, you see what I'm trying to say in the scientific method. So those are invaluable conversations that we have amongst other people in the, not just the medical field, but in mental emotional health and Sharita with finance. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. All those conversations are the things that kind of keep us going, keep the gas in the tank. You know?
That's incredible to have someone of such a high acclaim and to be a black man and to be a part of one of the 5 organizations that, assist and help with cancer research and cancer treatment in the country, to already have support. And it sounds like you got his ear when you have questions. And,
he's on our platform. Yeah. You can go on the Universal Health Chair page and he's there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So for the listeners who might not know what the Universal Health Chair is or what it's all about, in your own words, and this is to either one of you, in your own words, tell us what the organization is and what it's about and what's the mission.
Well, I'll speak. I want him to finish it off too, because I think we collectively we have a grasp on it. But the Universal Health Chair Network is is a network created to build community, right? But we build a community through the facets of mental health, physical health, and financial health. And so because we feel like these are things that are plaguing our community, so if we can get all these factors in place, it's almost like being your best self, right? Everybody wants to be their best version of themselves. So if you mentally fit, you physically fit, and you financially fit, who's going to stop you?
Yeah.
You see what I'm trying to say? And that's why it's about the community, because we're just trying to get people to be the best version of themselves. And so we use the backdrop, the environment of the barbershop or the beauty salon, because it's a unique space to have these conversations, to be able to kind of make it comfortable for individuals to talk about these things so that we can find resources for them to be able to aid in their growth and development in the community.
Yeah.
And so that's my take on it. What's your take, brother?
Well, the Universal Healthcare Network is absolutely a community-based organization to focus and drive the initiative for people to better their health. When we say health, we're absolutely focusing on mental, physical, emotional, and financial well-being. However, we want to make sure that we put it in, like you said, Dr. Wynn said, scientific method. And everything has an order in the universe. The universe has an order. So we know very well that they come to the barbershop, they go to the beauty salon, they go to the nail salon, they go to the spa. But when they get there, we want to kind of be there and also invite them to come there to then debunk some of the things that they're dealing with mentally and emotionally that are affecting their financial ability. Right. We know very well that if you're mentally and emotionally in a fog or in a downslide, that it's probably going to show up physically, but it's definitely going to probably show up financially. So we want to embody the fact that the Universal Healthcare Network is not alleviating any of those facets of what we call health. And also we want to focus on that in a time where this country and people are going into a crisis where millions of people are going to lose their health care. Millions of people are going to lose their health insurance. Millions of people are going to be paying double premiums. And it's going to put us as a community and a nation in a state of crisis. So we built the Universal Healthcare Network so that we can be together and trying to resolve some of these issues. Any nonprofit, any organization, any corporation, any business, any community organization, when you build it, you try to fill a void. What void are you filling? And what other organizations that are similar that you're not competing with, but what are you doing different than the other organizations that are similar to yours? So ours is different because we're asking people to focus on these things, but we want to do them together. And we want to do them at this time where we know we're heading into a crisis that we haven't seen maybe since the 60s or 70s.
Right.
Yeah, man, that's incredible. And when you talked about the balance or the domino effect of one thing being out of order that leads to another thing being out of order, leads to another thing being out of order, I really like that that's how you're articulating it, how you're talking about it, because maybe a lot of people don't think that those things connect or correlate to each other. If they're in good health financially, or if they're in good physical health, then they can think about their financial health separately and apart and in a different part of their life. And if they're emotionally well, they see a therapist, they have a good family and friend structure, then they don't need to think about that in relation to them being at the gym on a regular basis, or that it connects to them being financially stable or having a good job, because they're all related. And I like that that's one of the focuses of, the network and empowering people and educating people that these things are all related. The money part, when I was reading up on the network and seeing that financial wellness was something that you all wanted to tackle and wanted to educate people on, and involve in the conversation with overall well-being and health. I thought that was incredible. Just like bang on. Because from my experience, I talk to my family members and my friends, financial education has been way behind the curve
Absolutely.
and way behind the 8 ball for a very long time. And it's only now that I'm seeing a resurgence or a reemergence, sometimes in often cases, an outpouring of information in the financial education space. A lot of it exists online and it's unregulated. It's by, user generated content and, people on YouTube or people that are writing blogs that they want to spread the word that they've cracked the code to being good at finances and they want to share their knowledge. Therein lies the issue. It shouldn't be a code that needs to be cracked. Everyone needs financial knowledge and education to be healthy, to be well off and well suited to live in our economy and our environment and our communities. So advocating for that as a part of the network, I think is a huge, huge asset for sure. I love that's a part of it.
All right.
That's a good segue for.
Yeah. We have another one of your partners here in the studio, Sharita. Yeah. We're gonna take a break here in a minute and get her on so we can hear a little bit of what she has to say, some of her background and her viewpoint on the financial part of the Universal Healthcare Network. So I just want to say thank you all for both of you for being here and for opening up and being willing to tell us a little bit more about the network. For the listeners and for people watching, where can they find you and more information about the Universal Healthcare Network?
So we have a Instagram page. It's Universal Health Chair, right? At Universal Health Chair on Instagram. My business page is salon201.va on Instagram. And
so my platform is called Rise Up RVA.
Right.
Like I'm administrator as well of the Universal Health Chair, so you can reach out to at Rise Up RVA on any platform. We're on every platform: YouTube, X, Facebook, any platform. It's at Rise Up RVA, and the email is riseuprva@gmail.com. We're still one community, and we're still rising up, and that's what the Universal Health Chairs Network is, another level of rising up. I want to speak about Sharita and the network really quick before we bring her on. Sharita is a very intelligent, very professional part of the network. We want to deal with balance. We are original men of culture and professionalism. And so we know that in order for anything in the universe to have balance, there has to be masculine and feminine part itself, masculine and feminine energy. And so as men who know that we want to be successful, that we want to, be in balance, and we don't want to be off balance, we need, respect, and value the asset and the energy that Sharita brings and her financial education to the Universal Healthcare Network.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
Absolutely. Love that. I appreciate the segue there. So for you all at home, or if you're listening or watching, it's been a great conversation with Abdul and Ali. We're going to take a quick break and bring on Sharita, who is the third partner of the Universal Healthcare Network. We're now here with AB and Sharita, also known as Ree. She's the third member of the Universal Healthcare Network, and we wanted to have her on the podcast to share her perspective from the financial side of healthcare. So thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So to kick things off, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started.
A little bit about my background. About 20 years in the industry, or finance is my background. Implementation, strategy, automations. Work for most of the big fours, coming up, government agencies and federal. And more so was able to manage project budgets for $1 million companies, but not able to manage my own finances early on in my 20s. I mean, who was? But yeah, so ultimately just kind of seeing that across the board within the community. And so then I started to offer money coaching to the community, to my friends and other individuals, and basically using what I was learning in a Fortune 500 company to apply to yourself personally. Mm-hmm. So operating your own life or your own self and your household like a Fortune 500 company. And then that's kind of how I transitioned.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And I can totally relate to being able to give advice, but not take my own. It's kind of a notorious situation where you absorb a lot of information and a lot of knowledge, but you don't always know how to apply it in your own world. Mm-hmm. It's a little slippery slope, but there's always some pathways through that. And like I said, it's always a lesson that can be learned. And that can even go into your next opportunity at sharing some of that wisdom. Is like, okay, well, don't do it the way that I do it. Try it like this instead. So what made you, want to take your professional experience and apply it to the Universal Healthcare Network?
I think for myself, it was a trifecta. More or less, everyone talks about physical health, mental health, emotional health, but everyone kind of leaves out the financial health and how they all work together. And more than likely, your finances will impact your mental or your physical more so than your physical or mental may impact your financial. However, sometimes we get left out of the conversation. So when the two gentlemen put together the Universal Healthcare Network, I think I was a great addition to add the financial component.
Yeah, absolutely.
That trifecta is key. And I think a lot of folks probably don't make that connection between your mental well-being, your financial well-being, and your physical well-being, because it's all tied in together. That's kind of the misconception, is that all these things are separate.
Right.
These things are just different parts of, like a spreadsheet. It's just different columns. But in reality, it's one whole organism, one whole body, one whole being. And I can only speak from my personal experience. Money stresses me out. When I have it, when I don't have it, when I'm trying to get it, when it's coming to me, it's all a bit stressful. But I think that has a lot to do with, my perspective on it, my experience with it. Mm-hmm. But that goes into the mental, spiritual, even, and emotional side of it. And then it does affect your physical side, what you put in your body, what you can afford to eat, what you can't afford to eat, when you have access to things like healthcare or the ability to work out, to be physically fit. So it's all tied up in there. And I'm glad that that's the approach that you're taking with it. Yes. It's really cool. You said before that money is a part of healthcare. What does that mean in the practice, or what does that mean in practice, and why is it such an important part?
I would say in practice, kind of what you said before, how having money may potentially stress you out as well as not having money. So it's a part of healthcare because it's a part of life, everyday life. And as much as we like to think, what do they say? Money can't buy happiness. It definitely makes the world go around. Mm-hmm. But yes, so like you mentioned, being able to have access to certain medications that may be contingent on your salary, how much you make, what you're available to do. Mentally, being able to provide for your kids and for yourself and not have to be stressed or worried or wondering what's going on. So money is a part of healthcare, because when your finances are good, you could still have different troubles, but I think ultimately it allows you options.
Yeah, that's a really good point to make, is reframing the way you think about money is like a big step. Oftentimes it's the step that takes the longest and requires the most work, is like your perspective on it, because it's a huge part of who you are, what you do, your motivations for, the job, the people you hang out with, and knowing that that's something that you have to shift. It's kind of a hard thing to get your head around. Mm-hmm. But just that perspective change can make a huge, huge difference. And, AB, for you, like having Ree as a part of the organization and having her perspective on the financial side, you have these conversations at the shop. Right. From what you're seeing, is this starting, does this resonate with people that you talk to?
Yeah, absolutely. Because everybody is plagued with financial woes, so to speak. Right. But like you said earlier, we these are things that we typically don't talk about, right? Because we hold them close to our hearts. These are personal things, finance, emotional and physical health. These are personal things. And so a lot of people, especially in the shop, we don't really speak of these things too often. And so I want to be able to encourage individuals in this space and other places, along with Riri, to be able to have these conversations in a more a safe environment where they feel more relaxed to be able to speak about them. You know what I mean? Like we can wear them on our sleeves sometimes, so it's not so much taboo to say, hey, listen, I'm, in a financially bad place. How do I get out of here?
Correct.
And working with Riri and listening to things that she speak, I'm learning all the time.
Yeah.
I'm constantly learning. I'm taking pages out of her book, and I'm constantly taking mental notes to implicate and imply with my own finances every day, because I don't know everything. I wasn't raised with that type of information, with that type of knowledge. And a lot of times I realized that a lot of cultures and different ethnicities would talk about finances, but they'll talk about them around the dinner table, right? So when we go to school, they typically don't teach us about credit and saving and investment, but you learn that in your household. And so if we haven't learned it in our household, where are we to go to get this type of information?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a really good point to make about, the financial / educational angle here is, nowadays there's an overabundance of information online and lots of people have access to it, but without curriculum and a way that is enabling people to retain and use the knowledge, it's just useless information, right? It's also confusing because it's coming from different sources who have different opinions on it. They have different approaches on it. So if you can come up with a way that a curriculum almost that is catered to people that definitely didn't get a formal education on finance and then even how it connects to the other parts of being whole, then you're already ahead. You're already doing more for the community than, some of the institutions that we have, like universities or schools or programs. So, I mean, it's a noble pursuit, for real. And when you teach a class, sign me up. I'll be right there.
And I'm going to be on the front row with you.
Be right there. So you often describe yourself as the money therapist. What does that mean? And how does emotion show up in the way that people deal with it?
So it can be contributed to what we say, financial trauma or financial stress. We've talked about family and history and how that can be passed down, right? So things that your mother did unconsciously or subconsciously as a child, we sometimes mimic what we see and not what we hear, right? So although they advocate for us to be better financially, we saw you stressed over bills. We saw the lights get cut off. We saw these things that would particularly happen that either you chose not to do in your adult life, but because you were somewhat conditioned in your childhood, it became a part of your adult life. So more or less, even back to the conversation of conversations around money. In our community, a lot of people don't like to talk about it. It's like, it's my money. It's what I do. I got it under control. And as long as I can stay behind this wall where you can't really see, right? Then I have it under control, but I'm actually suffering in silence, right? For myself, I used to isolate. I used to duck off, get myself together, and I wouldn't come back up until I had my finances in order. That was a form of trauma, right? Like, why do you think or feel like you have to deal with it on your own? And my perspective then was, because you can't help me. But help doesn't have to always be in the form of finances. I could be someone to talk to. I could be a resource. I could send you somewhere to help you with what you need, but we don't want to talk about it. So you're not getting any assistance. You're just kind of like off in the corner, isolation, depression, frustration. Now you're angry, you're being mean. All of the side effects of financial stress. And back to the point of the trifecta, right? People don't associate the two. You had a nasty attitude with your boyfriend because you want to pay some bills and can't pay your bills, but he has no idea that you need to pay these things to be able to support you or help you, but he's getting the brunt of it. Now he's starting the issue with you because he don't know what your issue. So it's just a, domino effect, right? You're being more mean to the kids because they keep asking for something and you don't have it to give. But we like to tell children it's not your business, or these are adult things. And back to what you were saying, I like to call them money dates. Whether you're doing by yourself, take some time in it. Money doesn't have to be so stressful. Light a candle, self-care, right? And look over your finances, whether that's by yourself, with your mate, the person that you share expenses with or want to share a life with. Have money dates. Talk about what's going on in your household, and even with your household with kids. a lot of times we don't like to share the information with children because we feel like, oh, it's an adult conversation. But imagine if your children really knew what was going on financially, it might relieve some of the burden of, I want this, I want that, or why we don't have this, or why we don't have that. They have more insight. And just sitting around the table and having that real conversation of what's going on financially, whether you want to save, whether you want something we wanted to save up for, whether I'm behind a few months on the bill so we can't get it this month, whether we should be investing with our extra, just having the conversation to start the conversation. And if you don't have a family or a mate, do it with your friends.
Yeah, that is very well said, and that bit about financial trauma, man, it resonates. And I think with most people, despite background, I think that's an American circumstance that has kind of just been kind of perpetrated by, I don't know, the powers that be, I suppose, but it is definitely, it's been a part of my upbringing. It was a part of like a lot of my friends growing up. Nobody wanted to talk about money unless you had it. No one ever talked about not having it. And if you did, it was, you can often find out or find yourself even in like a victim mentality. Like the problems become the reason to talk about anything. You see those people that are just constantly talking about what's going bad in their life. And it usually has something to do with the work or money or the family. Right. And that's a big part of it, is like you're being traumatized by these circumstances. Like you're not physically being harmed, but it is mentally like degrading you so much so that becomes your whole world. And it's eye-opening when you realize that was maybe a part of who you were when you were a young person, because you didn't know.
Correct.
And now you have some education, you look back on, you're like, God damn.
Connecting the dots.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if you were doing that for people and they have that aha moment, you're already helping people in ways that can go immeasurably far in the future for them. Even if that's the last thing that they get from you, is like that little perspective shift has a big repercussion.
Right.
We talk about like work and stuff at the shop, when I'm in there, get my hairline tightened up. And I think that's a really cool and unique part of this organization that you guys have created and kind of formed around it, is that atmosphere being just that situation. It's the barbershop, but it's not a therapist's office. You're not going to church. It's not your friend. It's not your parents. It's not your boss. It's someone objective, but you also trust. And it's comfortable because this person is taking care of you. So you feel more able and open and free to have these conversations. Like, man, I have a tough time at work. Boss is riding my ass. Kids screaming at night. Can't get no sleep. What are we going to do? And then you switch it up. It's like, did you watch the game last week? What's going on with you? Right. It's a really cool atmosphere to invite people into, because they'll be comfortable and more willing to have those open conversations. Right. And like, that's exactly the point, is to like get to a place where these conversations aren't like pulling teeth.
Correct.
This is just regular, everyday. Right. This is what we talk about because this is how we get through it.
Right.
Right. The trauma part especially it will remain traumatic for you if you don't process it. They say that all the time. It's like, you have to talk about it. You have to be the one that talks about it. No one is going to do it for you. It's a part of that healing process. So y'all are doing some work.
The first time I met with Virginia Voices for Children, we did a Zoom call. Nobody was familiar with anybody on the Zoom, with the exception of the people who organized the program. And I was kind of leery, to be honest with you, because I was a newbie, and everybody on the Zoom were clinical psychologists and licensed clinicians and mental health and things of that nature. And I was leery to tell them about my title because I didn't have a license for therapy or things of that nature with children, right? And so when I told them, I said, hey, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have a license for this, but I'm a barber. And what I do every day and what I've been doing for years has been mentoring young men and talking to them about things of that nature when it comes to finance and mental and physical health. And they had an aha moment, like, really? So they was like, yo, we didn't understand that you guys are unofficially healing and mentoring and having sessions with young men throughout for ages. Barb's been doing this. And so it was just it clicked in how we can work in congruency with mental health people with trauma,
Yeah. I mean, that's for you personally in that situation. I can't imagine what it's like to be on the other side of that conversation with those experts, the people with the plaques and the, degrees on the wall and all of the titles in front of their name, intimidating, I'm sure.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, well, I'm just a barber. What am I doing here? And then to have them say, oh, wow, I didn't know that you were doing that. You were actually providing all of this stuff, and maybe unbeknownst to you at the time until it clicked for you that you were providing the service that they went to school for and helping people the way that they have dedicated their careers to do so. Like,
right.
That's a really cool moment to like really reflect on it. And I think I mentioned this in the first half is, conviction is a big part of a movement and trying to get people to understand what you're doing and follow the cause. Creating conviction out of thin air is almost impossible. It has to come from your personal experience, right? It has to grow and you have to really believe it. And when it happens to you and then you realize that you've been doing it all along, it is a lot easier to continue to push forward when there are challenges, right? Because growing something like this isn't going to be easy. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of time and effort, especially away from your other obligations. But when it's something you were already doing and you were happy to do it, and then you realize you could do it more for more people in a different aspect, that's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah, man. So, when you're behind the chair talking with clients, do you notice the same emotional connection to money and stress when the conversation comes up?
I do. And I also noticed that, and I think this is just a maybe a cultural thing, but we have a lot of people that lied. We got a lot of people that front in our community.
Yeah.
Everybody put on airs. Everybody says, hey, I got this and I'm making this. And, a lot of times people come to the barbershop fresh. They come with the J's on and this and the third, right? And sometimes we can see through that. It's easy to kind of see through the facade. Because if you're wearing your money on the outside, if we see everything that all your worth on the outside, what really is behind the veil? It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? When you pull back you heard this great big voice, but when you pull back the veil, it was this tiny little being. You see what I'm trying to say? And so I feel like a lot of it is insecurity, and we project it to try to make ourselves look bigger and better than what it really is. And so those are the things that we were trying to kind of break down, to say, oh, it's okay to be behind in your bills, because I think we've all experienced that, right? So it's okay. You're normalizing those type of conversations. I think is super important because a lot of people do put on a lot of facades.
Yeah, man. The going to the barbershop looking fresh with the J's on. I've been there when people show up like that, and for me, I'm like, why are you? It's noon, don't you? What are you doing at work? Did you dress like this? Like this? Right. It's just, it's always funny to me. But I'm, growing up, in Henrico County, Richmond City County, going to school, I definitely was friends with a lot of people like that. And on the other side of it is like when they show up with the fresh pair of J's on, or like a chain or some earrings or something, my family, we could never afford any of that. So my mom would get home after a long day's work and have to listen to me and my brother and sister crying because we didn't have Air Force Ones. Right. And she would do everything she could over the next week to get us shoes that looked just like Air Force Ones because that's all she could afford. So not only does it have the effect of, you get some clout, you get a reaction from people in your community. It's like, oh yeah, he must be doing really well for himself. He's got a fancy car, got a nice chain, always looks fresh. But then, reality, the other side is, usually not the case. And
also look how many people were impacted. The one who had on his shoes and looked all nice and probably really didn't have it internally, right? The one who went home to tell his mom that she wasn't technically doing a good enough job because he wanted things that someone else had that he couldn't afford himself. And now she's stressed because she's doing the best that she can, but now she wants to provide for her kids because sure they're doing great in school, they should have, but it's just a circle of fallacies, right? Because you have this one individual who has it on, but truth be told, we don't know if he robbed, killed, or steal to have it, right? And then you have another young man or young kids who want what he has to be in some type of, I guess, peer group, right? And then you have the parent of the kids, both sides probably, who's stressed because she's doing the best that she can to give more when, truth be told, the roof over your head, the food on the table, the clothes on your back was honestly more than enough. Mm-hmm. So it's a circle that is just stressful.
Upholding a facade.
Yeah. And I always wonder where it started. I mean, this goes back way further than, a couple generations, but nowadays it's different and it shows up in different ways because we have access to so many different types of showing off, right? You could have the newest phone, or you could have the freshest shoes, the most followers, the biggest community online, but all of those are showing off, but other parts of your life, 9 times out of 10 aren't really a reflection of, what you show to other people. And breaking down that barrier for lots of folks is hard, because a lot of people have their whole identity wrapped up into what they show to other people. For me, it's exhausting. I've dabbled in it a lot more when I was younger, and I've over the years slowly kind of gotten out of it. Now it's a combination of I like to feel good in things that I put on my body. I enjoy certain things about life, so I like to have them. But it's not like I need to show the world that I have all of this stuff. Right. I did that, and I think everyone has had their experience in over leveraging their capability to get something that makes other people think that they're cool, thinking that it will get something out of it, like this sensation or this feeling or this connection or, invited into the room or access to a party or whatever. Even if you get all that, you still go home by yourself.
Right.
And you still got to look at that bill in the morning. And you realize it wasn't worth it at all.
Right.
Correct.
You come home, you're just the next day, you're stressed out. You're working double hard to make that money back. It's a vicious cycle, like you said.
I'm at a point in time in my life where the only person that I want to impress from a financial standpoint is the bank teller.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
The loan officer.
The loan officer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the only person I'm willing, I'm trying to impress.
Right.
That I want to say like, wow. You know what I mean? Everybody else, I'm not that pressed about.
If you keep it humble like that too, I've noticed if you take that approach to not showing off, you keep it humble. It's like, all right, I'm not going to splurge on this stuff here. I'm not going to splurge on that stuff there. I'm doing okay. But what I will do is I got a little bit of money that I saved up because I've been pretty diligent about my ducks in a row and managing my finances. I think I'm going to go get a nice pair of sneakers. Right. And then I'm going to wear my pair of sneakers when I go out and see the homies on the weekend or wherever you're doing whatever. And then the next week, it's just you're back to the grind. And if you can keep that in like a relative relationship to everything else, you kind of make it more well-rounded, then that stuff has way more meaning to you because you were diligent, so you earned it.
Appreciate it more.
You appreciate it more. You didn't say, well, I've got an extra $50, but let me go spend 120 on sneakers. You didn't have an extra 120 and now you're just behind elsewhere. So you look at those sneakers like it's a stressful thing to look at the sneakers in that regard. So it's just that the education part of this is really fascinating to me.
Yeah, because I was going to say that's kind of, I want to say basement, but mindset, right? Because initially you will want to satisfy those desires with the material. But sometimes people always say, if you had more than enough, would those still be your same desires? Right. And then we have to start talking about the conversation of income producing assets, right? The dividends, the other things that we don't get to talk about because we've yet to discuss the financial trauma, the stress of money, the basement of it, the basement of the conversation, but allowing your dividends to pay for those nice sneakers. So now when you look at them, you didn't really pay anything for them. You feel better about it. But again, we have to get to certain conversations to be able to have those conversations.
Yeah. So from the perspective of the Universal Healthcare Network, and this being your area of expertise, what are some of the things that you're excited to do, looking forward to doing in the community with this approach to financial well-being with regards to the trifecta, the emotional, the physical, and the financial?
So for me, just holding up the leg of it, really just starting the conversation, because that can be the most difficult. A lot of times, like you said, we all wear our money, look good, but being able to spark the conversation, because you'll be surprised at how many people have very similar stories, but you feel like you're alone, right? And once we really get the conversation started, providing them with outlets and activities that can help them, whether it's financial trauma or financial stress or just your mindset around money. And then from there, because the mindset around money is very big and a lot of us ignore it, the tools and the resources and being able to share that also with other individuals within the community. So we've worked on financial trauma. We're not afraid to talk about it. We're now having healing conversations so that we can heal. And then we're now kind of tapping into our mindset, seeing why we do the things, the habits and the behaviors of, like you said, where did it come from? Whether it was our parents, hip hop, whatever the influence was. And then ultimately starting to utilize the resources and the tools to put ourselves in a better position to leave a legacy.
Yeah.
So really like beating down the house or building the house while we still take care of our physical, still take care of our mental, and not allow finances to make the house of cards fall.
Yeah. I'm curious because I can be entertained or entertain the kind of higher overarching concept, that I can get my head around it for the most part. But I have trouble usually implementing ideas or concepts. Okay, this is a greater concept. I really I can get my head around it. I understand the idea of balancing finances and mental health and physical health. I understand the concept of, being financially literate, studying the concept of money and learning as much as you can about it. What I really enjoy is the practical tools, but those are usually the hardest parts of it. Those are not the hardest parts, but maybe the hardest parts to find, and to find like a reputable place to go and get that stuff. So what would be some of the practical tools that you would be sharing with the community?
I would always say start with the budget. As I mentioned, operating like a Fortune 500 company. No one wants to operate in the red. We want to operate in the black. So knowing your income, what's coming in. If you have a cash flow issue, you should know that, right? Your expenses. A lot of times we overextend ourselves and we like to say, oh, I don't make enough, or I make money, but I don't know where it goes. Why do you not know where your money goes? Maybe at a younger age, but at a grown age, an adult age, you should definitely know that. And then from there, how do you make your money grow? And how do you keep more of your money? And that would be more so the tools and the resources. A lot of people sometimes don't like spreadsheets. I love budgets.
Yeah, I don't like spreadsheets.
Of course, most people don't. But at the very basic, bare minimum, whatever your income is, subtract your expenses is what you have left over. And you're either operating in a surplus or a deficit. And to know that is the basis, right? If you're in a surplus, we have more to do. We can move around a little more. We can make sure we're getting the right health care for ourselves, making sure that we're taking the mental breaks that we can afford to take the mental breaks. And if we're operating in a deficit, we're probably going to start affecting our health and affecting our mental.
Right.
So therefore, we probably need to figure out how to make more. I don't like to say cut back, because when you're living on bare bones, you tend to do things that you may not want to do. So more than likely, probably increase your income. And that's sometimes, easier said than done. But again, starting the conversation. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take personal note of that, and I will send you an email.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I will look at a spreadsheet begrudgingly, but I'll look at a spreadsheet.
No, you don't have to look at the spreadsheet. You just, what's your income? Add up your expenses, right? Income, subtract expenses. You're either positive or negative. Just start there.
Okay. Positive or negative. I could work with that.
That's a great nugget right there.
Yeah, it's a great nugget of wisdom. It's easy
Simple.
Peasy, right?
It's simple, right?
That's a great place to start, because a lot of times, this is, for most people, just if you've not been very good at your finances and it's causing you stress, the idea of approaching how to sort it out causes you more stress and anxiety.
Right.
And then you don't do it, you procrastinate, you find a million other things to do. And the moment you take some time to look at it, it's this incredibly daunting, overwhelming situation, this giant mountain that you can't climb. I personally had that experience numerous times in my journey from someone who didn't have any idea about how to manage finances to someone who has a little bit more of an idea, but like not the whole picture. Still, it's a work in progress. But what I found is, for one, finding a really small, achievable goal that can put you in a better position than you were the day before. That is like the pinhole light at the end of the tunnel, which gives you the motivation to then go and do another thing that puts you in a better situation. If you've got a bunch of debt and you know you can't pay it all off at once, then just don't worry about all of the debt.
Correct.
Worry about the smallest part of it. And if you can do anything to impact that, that's one step in the right direction. Because a win has always been shown to beget another win. And if you can make the wins really small and achievable and stack them up, then you look back at you got 15 wins and it's only been a couple of days. Right? That's a lot of motivation to go into doing something more.
Or I like to say, eat the frog. Right? Look at your account. As you mentioned, when you don't look at it and the longer it takes you, the longer it's going to take you to fix it. That's what I like to tell my clients. It's like, oh, well, the more you avoid it, the bigger it gets.
Bigger it grows.
Because if you would have looked at it 2 weeks ago, it might not really was that bad. But you were so scared of it that you didn't look at it. Now we're 6 weeks later and it's like, oh, I could have handled it when it 2 weeks ago. I could have totally took care of it. But now it's now I'm really afraid, right? And like you said, just small steps, not necessarily going backwards or big steps forward and not going backwards, but small steps forward also. So the little things, identifying a goal and looking at your money is the first part.
Like a bunch of baby steps equal one big leap. And a lot of times things are more daunting in your head than they are on paper. And so they're overwhelming in your head because you jumble around multiple things. But the minute you lay it out on paper, it doesn't seem as extreme. So
it's incredible information. And, you're doing a lot of good work for a lot of people. For people to keep up with what's going on with you personally, how are they going to get in touch with you? How would they follow you?
So yes, I am on Instagram at Remode, RHEEMODE. You can find me there. And then I'm affiliated with Universal Health Chair Network also on social media. It's UHCN Network.org.
Okay. And if they want to contact you about information about, what you're doing next, how they can engage with you, they can participate, maybe contribute, how would they go about doing that?
Oh, you can contact us at on Instagram at Universal Health Chair. And you can hit us on an email at universalhealthchair@gmail.com for more information.
All right. Love it. Well, AB, Ree, I really appreciate y'all being here and sharing your personal knowledge in these specific areas and telling us more about the Universal Health Chair Network. I'm really excited to see, the traction that you all get, the response that you get from the community and all the people that you're going to help.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for having us, honestly.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Thank you.
This podcast was recorded at Vera House Studios in Richmond, Virginia, and produced by Perri Young and Myke Metzger.